Everybody knows to start a Pokemon. Or should I say, first partner Pokemon, as Game Freak is trying to name them now. And there's been a trend with new starters, giving them signature moves, some great and some just kind of average, and some map block. But that leaves older starters without anything special, unless you're blessed enough to be from Gen 1 or 3 with your Megas. Let's fix that, and give the 4th generation starters without signature moves some new ones. The problem with moves, however, is they're much more limiting than something like abilities, so it's pretty likely we're going to get some reskins of moves and some pretty generic moves, because there's only so much I can reasonably do before a move becomes very silly. The Kanto starters are all pretty good, because of course they are, they're from Kanto. So we're going to start off with Venusaur, giving it a move that changes up how it can be used. Currently, Venusaur likes being in the sun, using Chlorophyll to outspeed everything, trying to hit Sleep Powder or just blast off Solar Beam or Sludge Bombs. However, according to its Dex entry, its flower gives off a stronger scent after it rains. So, Venusaur gets Soothing Fragrance, which lowers a target's attack and special attack by 1, or by 2 when in the rain. It does have 90 accuracy, because a move that drops both attacks with no drawback is a little too strong. Venusaur could then choose to run a fast Sunset and weaken threats immediately with the -1, or a slower, bulkier build in the rain and be a nuisance whilst removing its fire weakness with the rain, obviously with no Mega Thick Fat. Honestly, despite how much they love Charizard, it doesn't really get much lore in the game behind being an angry lizard and burning things. So we're going to yoink a move here, giving Charizard Burning Blast, a special version of Sacred Fire. Charizard isn't very bulky, so going with a supporting move isn't really great for it. Special fire types also have Flamethrower, so the move's gotta be good enough to give it a reason over using the pretty safe Flamethrower. Combining a base 100 fire move with Solar Power and Sun is gonna hit pretty hard, provided it hits, that is. Blastoise has 2 cannons. Don't say you don't learn anything from these videos. So, it attacks with both cannons, hitting a special water-type Dragon Darts. It ends up as a base 100 attack in singles and more niche in doubles. Despite how common water types are, there's not a generally good special water attack, like, you know, how you've got Thunderbolt and Flamethrower and Ice Beam. Not including Surf here, because I play doubles. You either go for your Hydro Pump for your high damage and chance to miss, or you go for like your really weak like Water Pulse. Or if you're very lucky nowadays, you get Scald and you're just insane. But good job they got rid of that in a lot of Pokemon. So this gives Blastoise a more general attack that it can just kind of fit on without having to question anything. And in doubles, not so much. But it's still slightly different than here's a strong water attack. Johto starters sure are starters. Meganium is, well, Meganium. Typhlosion is Charizard 2 without a flying type. And Feraligatr is the unfortunate combination of a physical attacker and a pure water type. Let's try and give him something useful, because we know, well, at the very least Meganium needs it. Meganium is known for being not very good. And honestly, I don't really think any kind of move is going to make Meganium very good without being a just busted attack. Very similar to Venusaur though, Meganium gives off a Soothing Aroma, and, also similar to Venusaur, it's a new attack, Calming Aroma, lowers the attacking stats of the opponents, -1 attack and special attack to both opponents. Of course, there has to be a downside here, and it's accuracy, coming in at 80 accuracy, for the same reasons that Venusaur's move is inaccurate. Even though Meganium is a bad Pokemon, the constant drops to attack makes it harder to ignore, and if you top that off with Leech Seed, it's going to be pretty annoying to say the least, especially in singles. We could go the route Game Freak did with Typhlosion and just copy Charizard, but I've got something much more devious planned for it. Typhlosion uses the heat from its back to create a haze and disguise itself. So, mechanically, kind of like a Focus Punch, where Typhlosion acts immediately, creating a heat haze, boosting its evasiveness by 1, then hitting at the end of the turn if it wasn't hit. Of course, the evasiveness is what complements this so well, and it could probably snowball pretty easily if you just miss this thing once. but at the very least, Typhlosion isn't super bulky, so, you know, if you hit it once, you're probably going to kill it. And people don't really tend to run Evasiveness anyway because it's inconsistent. And, like, let's be honest, if you're playing doubles, you're still pressing Tailwind Eruption. Nothing's going to stop you from doing that. Now it's time for the basic move. Feraligatr gets a new biting move, Foaming Fangs. Water type Crunch, but instead of a defense drop, it's a speed drop, because bubbles make things slow, according to Pokemon. I don't really know why, but Bubble Beam and Bubble both do this, so is this move. Giving it a secondary effect also allows Sheer Force to activate, although I would argue that Feraligatr should get Strong Jaw, especially now it gets its stab boosted by it. Not that it's missing Sheer Force boosted moves though, and all the Fang moves are Sheer Force boosted, so I suppose a Strong Jaw change would be a nerf to it, but it makes more sense. Skipping over Gen 3 now, straight to Sinnoh. And if you're wondering why we passed over the best starter trio, it's because of these three moves. Anyway, Sinnoh sure has some cool starters, but unfortunately, this was their remake, so we Sinnoh fans got nothing. If you play through Sinnoh, you'd probably say Torterra's move would be Earthquake. It gets it at level 36 near Force, which is insane, by the way. I mean, it's Earthquake. Torterra's also pretty often seen in Shell Smash, but we're going to give it an alternative for this offensive set. Its new Shared Habitat is a status move, protecting its ally by letting them hide on its back. It's an ultimate redirection move, because you literally cannot target its teammate because it is on Torterra. All of the attacks will hit Torterra instead. Probably, if you were like me, how you expected Dondozo and Tatsugiri to work. Unlike most protection moves, it cannot fail, and spread moves will not hit its partner. So, you know, you can protect your teammate from Psy Spam, but the expanding force would no longer take the reduction, so it would hit Torterra even harder. Torterra isn't super tanky, which is partly due to its typing not being very great, but Torterra also isn't super offensive, so the move gives you a choice between your roles of Torterra. Unless, of course, you're playing singles. Then it's completely useless. Infinite Punch good. But what if Infinite Punch like Palafin? Infinite's Flare Fist is a fire-type Jet Punch, base 60 plus 1 priority. Now, while Infinite doesn't specifically need priority, there aren't any fire-type priority attacks, and it gives Infinite a better punching priority than Mark Punch. It also gives Iron Fist Infinite a new Fire Punch, which, while slightly weaker, the plus 1 priority is probably quite a big draw to use over Fire Punch. But pretty simple move other than that. Empoleon got buffed in the newest games, changing its Defiant to competitive, letting it use its higher special attack. Which is cool and all, but I gave it a new physical deck. Whoops. Empoleon has a severe lack of physical steel moves, so pulling from its Icebreaker ship inspiration, we give it Flow Breaker, a base 60 physical steel type move that always drops defense. A good version of Rock Smash. You'd think a move based on Icebreaker would do bonus damage to ice types, but there's not really much of a need to give a steel type move more damage to ice, considering how bad ice is anyway. So the defense drop kinda covers this instead. Another idea could be a slightly stronger move that ignores all field effects instead, but I think the defense drops helps Empoleon more, considering its physical attack is worse than its special, so it can use it more as a utility move than pure damage using your weaker attacking stat. Now, our last generation is Generation 5. Technically, one of these Pokemon had a signature move, as Emboar was the only Pokemon to learn Heat Crash in Gen 5. I would argue all three actually had them, with Leaf Tornado, which was given to 4 more Pokemon, only one of them actually being available in Black and White, and Razor Shell, which was only given to Shelter, not even Cloyster. But they never officially had a set of signature moves, so let's give them some. Trying to give Serperior something better for it than Leaf Storm is practically impossible, so we're going more for something based on its lore here. According to the Dex, Serperior only gives its all against strong opponents who are not phased by its glare, so a stronger special version of Payback can work here. Serperior is a pretty fast Pokemon, so the double damage from moving second would be pretty uncommon, which is why Forest Gaze is base 70 rather than Payback's 50, which also happens to make it slightly stronger than Leaf Storm if Superior moves second. The reason it gets bonus damage from moving second is because the opponent would have been unfazed by Superior's Glare, not to be confused with Superior's Glare, and so Superior becomes angry. Of course, we could also take Superior's Glare, not to be confused with Superior's Glare, and give it a double damage effect if it missed, because they were unfazed. But that sounds like a good move with absolutely no downside, so let's stick to the damaging attack. Emboar had a signature move in Heat Crash, but if we're doing the other two, we also have to do Emboar. Now, Emboar enjoys fighting, even more so when the situation gets dire. So, Emboar gets Dire Effort, a fire-type flail. Flail is never really an optimal move, and Emboar isn't particularly bulky, which I suppose isn't terrible because it'll be knocked low more often than a bulky Pokemon would. But again, I'm not making good moves here, and even if I was trying to replace Heat Crash, it would be just as inconsistent as it is. Our last Pokemon, Samurott, actually has a named weapon, which I didn't know, with its Scimitar Blades. Samurott is an amazing swordsman with these, being able to draw, attack with, and sheath in the blink of an eye. So of course, it'll be a priority attack. Samurott isn't exactly fast, so getting a strong priority attack is pretty useful, just like we've seen with Palafin. Where this differs from Jet Punch, however, is the classification of sharp, because, you know, it's Zord, thus giving it the boost of sharpness. Of course, I would also give Samurott sharpness, just like the Hisuian counterpart, so the move actually functionally differs from Jet Punch. It would essentially be a base 90 attack from Samurott, but Palafin has over 1.5 times higher attack than Samurott, so the 50% boost kind of makes up for that stat difference, and it wouldn't quite be as busted as you'd think. Plus, at the moment, why would you use base Samurott over the Hisuian form that can just mash Ceaseless Edge and set up spikes and do whatever else you want it to do? Whereas the Unova and Samurott kind of just sits there as a pretty bad pure water type. Now, for those who are curious, at all the other generations, we have Generation 3 with Leaf Blade, Blaze Kick, and Muddy Water. We have Generation 6 with Spiky Shield, Mystical Fire, and Water Shuriken, or Map Block. We have Generation 7 with Spirit Shackle, Darkest Lariat, and Sparkling Aria. Generation 8 with Drum Beating, Pyro Ball, Snipe Shot, and Gen 9 with Flower Trick, Torch Song, and Aqua Step. And if we count the Hisuian forms, we have Triple Arrows, Infernal Parade, and Ceaseless Edge. And that was all new signature moves for the rest of the starters that don't have them. I think it is nice to come back to these older Pokemon and kind of try and make them a bit more relevant than they maybe were. Of course, we have seen that recently with Charizard never really falling off because it's Charizard. Same with Venusaur. Typhlosion got its Hisuian form, which really made it useful with the Eruption and the immunity to Fake Out in doubles, especially in VGC. But other than that, we've not really seen a lot, and new moves can definitely help a Pokemon to, do something different, especially when that move is just completely out there and, like Population Bomb or Jet Punch, which are really strong moves that make Palafin and Maushold stand out from otherwise being pretty generic at what they do. But let me know what you think of the starters moves, and if you have any ideas that you think are better, or if you just particularly do not like them, that is also fine. As not all of them are made to be particularly good moves, Empoleon with a physical attack, you're probably still not going to use it, but it still makes sense lore-wise. Like, there are some moves that only one Pokemon learns, but you still won't particularly use because they're not amazing. But it doesn't mean that move shouldn't exist, right? And it's interesting to be able to show off these Pokemon more within their moves as well. Let me know if you have any other Pokemon that you think could learn some signature moves that would be interesting. And, as always, have a good rest of your day, or night, or evening, or morning, whatever it is when you're watching this.